Good morning, everybody. It's July 10th, Friday, 10:30, about 10:30 in the morning. And today I'm Clint Starr from Gaia's Empowerment. Gaia's Empowerment Center. I've made a few videos. I mean, they're cheesy and chinky, and I'm still trying to figure out the computer stuff, and there's a lot of stuff there, and basically, So, three topics for the day. We got America. What is human potential? Is humanity overpopulated? And what's my favorite trophy? Try to keep it, that's just the four subjects I want to get over today. Now, they are kind of complicated, but watch it flow, all right? Let's see if I can do this. All right, back to the board. All right, now, America is about conscious evolution, which is making decisions to make a better world, which basically is the love of thinking, doing, and making cool stuff. And they give me a little logo. See what the logo is you question, you think of cool, you find what's cool about it, and the pros and cons, you write it out, whatever, and you just dive right in. So it's part of the whole shebang. You're thinking, critical thinking, you're doing with enthusiasm, because that's what curiosity is. So now, why do I say that? Well, if you look at the Bill of Rights, check out the the Declaration of Independence, American history, battling the British, telling religious organizations that no, we will be able to have a decent conversation without you name calling and burning us at the stake. And those who know, that's the reason, all right? So freedom of speech, which is the number one, which is to protect everybody, so you can have dumb ideas and not get hurt by them or hurt others by them. Like good and bad, right, wrong, light, dark. There's various opinions. There's various ways of looking at any given thing, which is why it's conscious evolution, because you're designed to talk about it, because that's what intellect is. Especially since humanity, over the last few thousand years, has a very bad habit of executing anybody who has thoughts, who's able to reason and articulate and wanting to advance human consciousness anyways, or at least make something cool so the rest of the world can have it without losing their head. Like, think of Socrates. I think I can, there's a lot of philosophers, but Socrates is a big one. He was picked up by the government because of, corruption of the youth. What does that mean? Corruption. Well, if you want things in a nice, orderly fashion, let's say you're putting a puzzle together. You need the pieces and everything like that. And if one thing is off, then it's corrupt. It's not working. You don't got a nice picture. It looks weird. It's broken. And if you're trying to get people to be like, hey, this is how we can garden, try this idea, work this out. Why do we gotta listen to this guy when we got the fingers, we got the brain, we got the feet, we got the spine, so to do stuff. And what happened to Socrates? They picked him up, and his buddies, that he was teaching and stuff like that, Plato and Aristotle, I don't know. It's been a while, but I know those two stories have been burned in my head. And Plato, these guys watched Socrates die, and willfully die too, because, he didn't want to justify wrong. I mean, you can get all in that bag of worm. You can go in that rabbit hole, please do. It's a good exercise, and it gets you to be more it helps you understand the world. And then we got so it's been around for a long time. And when America came up, we're like, hey, we're tired of the old ways. We're tired of all this. We can only do so much to build a country. You know, if there's a million things, you got to organize it, structure it out. What are the big 100? You know, you got to cut all the other crap out. You know, there's some things that I wish was part of it, and some things I wish it didn't. Some things I'm glad that we fought for. You know, everybody's freedom. You know, we're supposed to fight more for freedom. Freedom. Now, what's freedom? Freedom is to think, build, without harassment, without tyranny. And that's why it's conscious evolution, because you're busy doing stuff. You're busy saying, hey, does this thing work? Does that thing work? Adding your survival is making your own survival as a personal thing. You know, because there's a fossil record. It's going to be there, and you're going to be part of it later. You know? I mean, you're only going to get like maybe 60 more years, depending on how old you are watching this, and depending on how technology works. I mean, shit. You can be 60 years now. You can be 60 years old right now, and there could be a medical treatment or procedures or something rather in the next 2 to 3 years, which most likely will happen because of conscious evolution. So you'll be able to live an extra 60 years. All right? So relax. There's going to be a fossil record. It's millions of years old. You're already part of it. Just accept it. Just accept it. Now, for the short-term thinkers, what do we got to do for, I don't want to die today, which is valid. So what you figure out ways so you die, so you up your odds of survival, which means health. What do I eat? How do I eat without killing myself? Is this plant healthy or poisonous? Is this beneficial to my digestive system and overall health, or is it counterproductive? If I run a few miles, then I gotta have nutrition, and have physical fitness and stuff. If I learn martial arts, then that means I know how to defend myself from an opponent, from an attacker. Because I don't want to get mugged when I just got back. I don't want to get mugged if I'm coming out of the casino with $1,000. And I put 20 in or 100 in or whatever. Just making it simple. Just keeping it very simple. So naturally, and I'm a guy. I'm about 5'6", and I don't want to get hurt. If someone pulls a knife on me, I want to know how to deal with it. If someone pulls a gun on me, I want to know how to deal with it. If there's a mob coming after me, and there's nowhere to go, like in a dark alley of happens in New York, I'm guessing, since that's where comic books and other movies come in. So, if you're in that situation, yeah, sure. Steve Rogers, Captain America, he's always getting his butt kicked. And honestly, he's always had the ability to lift up Thor's hammer because he was chosen to be Captain America. Does that make sense? You see where I'm going with this? So somebody else already knew he was worthy for this cocktail that was going to power him up, which is freaking amazing. Now, that's all government stuff, which is fine, because I don't want that stuff, whatever. Anyways, back to the subject. So that's kind of where we're at. And yes, comic books is pretty good because it gets you thinking of, well, what would I do if I was a superhero? If I had superpowers, what would I do? Naturally you want to, do you want to rob a bank? Why? You want to do something cool? Sweet. Now, corruption and all that stuff, that's how you keep a healthy heart. Founding fathers expected things to fall apart every 100 or so years because people get lazy. They let somebody else take care of the worms. They want someone else to take care of you, feed you, pamper you. It's perfectly normal. There's some sayings you can go with that. Like a good saying that I like is a buffalo and a cow. A storm is coming. The cow runs from the storm, gets exhausted. The storm catches, and it just lives in the storm. The storm catches up, it's still running, doesn't want whatever. The buffalo runs towards the storm. Within 30 minutes or 15 minutes, it's already sunshine. As opposed to the cow that died of exhaustion, for example. Extreme, whatever. All right, so that's kind of where we're going at. Now, conscious means you're thinking, you're doing, you're feeding your brain, you're adding survival tactics. Because that's kind of what it really is. You make something cool, now you can do something to add your survival. Now, which leads to habitat. Because if you destroy your habitat, you affect your survival. Basic. So, which leads to critical mass and all that, and all those fun numbers, which I'll get to later. And then pretty soon, what happens when you master your environment and it's a stable, happy, sunshine, well balanced, whatever. Well, then you want to go to other places, like Mars, for example. That's pretty cool. And that's why we have capitalism, so people can work on these outlandish, crazy ideas. Being able to adapt over the years has happened. Because the millionaires, or what would be considered today's trillionaires back in the day, because the number just keeps going up and up, and the value of currency fluctuates. If you want to give a good idea of how the difference between American dollar and gold, there's ratios and stuff, and there new ideas, and we got to start thinking about how to be a multiplanetary species. Why? Because it's normal. It really is normal. Think about it. Now the scientists will talk about all the paranoia, all the fear, and they couldn't make it because they always find a way. Well, take in consideration that if you run the math, there might be a 20% survival rate. That's awesome. Seriously, that's awesome. And that's a great way to be. Put yourself in the top 20%. Am I able to recover from this situation? Am I able to bounce back? Conscious evolution. That's kind of what it is. All right, that's a great way of thinking about it. All right. So now back to the whiteboard. 2. What is human potential? I kind of went over that, with the space thing, and that's kind of where we're at, So what can you do? There's a lot of, that's over the top. And if you run the numbers, it doesn't matter who does the space travel. You're going to be in the top digits. You're going to be breaking the trillion. You're going to be setting the financial records. It's because you're doing off-world things. It's been since the 90s or whatever. When people were talking about mining asteroids and colonizing this, these were all American dreams. These are all human dreams. And American means conscious evolution. That's pretty much all it really means. I'm an American. It means I like to think for myself. I like to build. I like to stay free. I don't want government violating. I don't want to go over to fill a paperwork here so I can go put a nut over here. And then in order to get that paperwork, I got to go over here and do 15 different things, dance through a rat's nest, and then you can't do anything, which is what's happening now, which is why they say there's going to be a civil war. Now, that's scary. What happened in 2020? They were trying to innovate that. It's been amazing that we were kind of lazy and we didn't just exercise our amendments, because we're freer. We're law-abiding citizens, and we take pride in our laws, even though they're counterproductive to the Bill of Rights. A good question. Who committed? Anyways, so the question I was going to ask is, who committed treason first? It's a general question. The ATF or the coward asking the government permission to violate the Second Amendment? On that subject, how did that happen? It says thou shalt not be infringed. So when someone was coming up with the paperwork today, we need to come up with this new agencies, what are you going to do? We're going to regulate firearms. And the person's like, oh, okay, whatever, sure. Anybody else, that would have been instant, nope. Right there, plop down. First you talked about it, and then obviously they put the paperwork in. Now you're committed treason, and now you just plop. All right. So the fact that didn't happen, now I don't know when these agencies popped up, and I don't really care. Honestly, I already know that agencies were on my ass, tap my phone. I don't care. It doesn't matter. You're the one wasting your time. Peeping Toms, okay? That's all you are. You're violating the Fourth Amendment to spy on other people. Period. It doesn't matter if you're part of a Google or ASFATs or whatever government agency or spy network or underground. Who gives a shit? You're watching me, and thank you for that. I don't care where you're at, but you're spying on me. Thank you for the attention. I'm glad you're willing to waste your time. Now, for my fans, thank you. Now back to now over the paranoia stuff or logical thinking, because it makes sense since we're all being monitored. If you don't think you are, you are. Anyways, so what's more important? Let's get back to the important stuff while I get on another tangent. All right. So that's kind of human potential, is being a multiplanetary species. Healthy planet, love, and peace, which basically means peace. World peace. Now, how do you get world peace? Inner peace. And I'm just going to leave it at that. That's lessons for the books that I'm coming up with. I'm in the middle of the second chapter, and I've already shown hints on social media on what's in it. All right. Anyways, the third one. All right. Is humanity overpopulated? What is the math? All right. What is the math? Okay. A, growth rate of population. B, what would be a stable population of species in the total biodiversity of the habitat? It sounds a little confusing, but that's the best way I can articulate it. And I've been staring at this thing for like 3-4 days. What is the cause? What is causing the death of the plants, animals, waterways and stuff? The contaminated, the food, the GMOs that's been there. I mean, they teach it in school. Monsanto's, and all these larger corporations. You can just look them up, do your homework, and that's kind of the purpose of this. I'm not rebelling. I'm literally being what America's about: accountability, and we're tired of this shit. I like guns. I just think they're just too much to think about, especially when you guys make things so complicated. So back to basics. What is the math? All right, well, humanity for the last 60 years has grown in population of 1 billion per 12 years. So over the last 60 years, we've grown 6 billion. I think we're at like 8 billion right now. 6. So 6 billion people, my math is wrong. My math is wrong. It's not 6 billion, 12, 6, 5 billion. It's 5 billion. Because there's 12. 5 times 12 is 60. Yeah. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 60. Gotta double check my math once in a while, since I get on these little tangents and I know I get things all twisted. But that's what makes it fun. This is critical thinking. This is articulating. This is the frustration of it. And you know what? I'm not going to edit this. And as long as I'm not like too angry about it, I'm just whatever. So that's the math. So if we're populating at that, what else has happened in the last 60 years? Well, according to World Wildlife Federation, which is an organization, if I had an opportunity to work for or volunteer with, I would have already done it. And I've worked with Defenders of Wildlife, volunteered, same thing. I applied time to do stuff. I've done with Defenders of Wildlife. I highly recommend it. And for the guys out there, they do make good dates. There's nothing better than taking your girl out to like the zoo to go promote polar bear something or other. The icebergs. Back, it was like 20 years ago, it was the polar ice skates thing, or the ice shields were melting. I cared more about the population. I cared more about conservation, not the propaganda. You gotta know the difference. I'm talking about numbers. I'm talking about numbers. That's it. Just pure numbers, not ideology. Like if I fart in a certain direction, the weather is going to be more pleasant, which doesn't make any sense since weather changes all the time. You don't want a stagnant weather pattern because nothing would live, literally. Plus, nature is never stagnant. even in a desert. It's always moving. So the biodensity, now once people get in all of our stuff that we're doing, the natural byproducts of what we're doing and what we're making and stuff like that has an effect on nature. And, some entrepreneurs actually care about nature. Benjamin Franklin never lost his head on that, which is awesome because he thought about how to make nature and people work together. And that's kind of what Gaia's Empowerment Center is about. Stewardship of the earth. So if you run the numbers, back to World Wildlife. They said that 70% over the last 60 years, 70% of wildlife habitats have been completely destroyed. Destroyed. That could mean all kinds. That means that destroyed. It means it's not of natural habitat, which means that there's houses, there's human stuff there, agriculture, non-organic, how it would be. That's how I'm interpreting it, at least. So what's the extinction rate? Last I cared enough to check was like 20 years ago. And it's very hard to get adequate information nowadays. So that's why. And it was about 25% across the vertebrates. All 5 vertebrates. The fish were in the 25% area. So, and some of them were in the 30%, some of them were 18%, but generally the average was 25%. That's terrifying. And that was 20 years ago. Or 10 years ago, when I was more into it. And even though, and I was looking in those, whatever, it doesn't matter. Because that was real numbers. People actually put forth the work, put their hands onto whatever device or whatever activity and did the numbers, actually did the footwork, which is conscious evolution, which is awesome. So you got to understand the actual math of it. And then the waterways, we're doing the death. We are. We can clean this up, which is why my company's named the way it is. And the best way to do that is to get inside your head. And I say that with all the love and awesome sauce. I mean, seriously. What kind of a person is that for a logo? You know what I mean? Like, oh, well, that's cool. And if you read it, it says N-O-W for now. Let's eat the day, all right? Now, what is my favorite trophy? So that's kind of what we're going with. Do I think humanity is overpopulated? Before 2020, yes. After 2020, with all the politics, and the females doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and the self-sterilizations and the riots and all that fun stuff. Oh, I mean, not fun stuff. All that woke nonsense, propaganda, W on the alphabet soup, and people cutting their stuff off and all that stuff. Actually, if you run the numbers I was just talking about the Civil War thing and how we pretty much survived it, the second one, that's kind of what that's kind of what I was talking about, which is kind of the reason why I'm excited. Not excited is like, oh, this horrible tragedy thing, but I'm excited that it collapsed. I'm excited that that's what happens. Things collapse. And there's many different ways. We got New World Order coming up. We got all kinds of weird stuff coming around. And accountability and stuff of that nature is very important. Very, very important. And now, why do I get excited about that? Why is that exciting? Because do you really want stupid people to breed? Seriously. They found that the government literally used socialism politics to eliminate its own competition. You cannibalize yourselves. It's awesome. You did exactly what people have been doing for thousands of years, like I said about Socrates. Except this time, you let the stupid people take themselves out, which is the most American thing to do. Because only stupid people work for the government, generally speaking, or there wouldn't be so many unelected, nobody voted for federal agencies that have violated all 10 of the Bill of Rights. All right? And that's sad. I mean, why are we paying taxes? To fund global terrorism? To put our country, we got $40 trillion in debt, and we're still paying taxes to all these healthcare things and everything else? That's why you got to have an entrepreneur that's lost a business a few times so they understand financial literacy. So you understand math. And honestly, anything that the government talks about is girl math. Played up girl math. That's the level of logic you guys have. You're busy just being emotional. You don't even respect the country. In fact, your job is by definition treason. Like I said about the ATF. Like, I'm surprised whoever thought about the day of the ATF, the guy that he was talking about or talking to or whatever, didn't shoot him right then and there and ended the subject right there. And I say that for all the agencies. It's like WTF. What the fuck? All right. So now back to like seriously, like fucking hilarious. Anyways, back. So, what is my favorite trophy? All right. Well, it's in this envelope. The envelope's dirty. Yeah, I know. There it is. Look at this. Participant Physical Fitness Award. Clinton Woodard, commemorative of, there it is. And that's the presidential, there's the autograph of Bill Clinton. I mean, granted, it kind of gives you a where it's at. But this is the presidential one. And why this is my favorite. The reason why this is my favorite, because when I was in Keswick school, little Keswick school, my mom, whatever, it don't matter. She threw me into a boarding school, threw me a couple boarding schools. This was the last one, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm the type of person, I look for trophies, not problems. So why that one's awesome, because in the school, there was only like 35 kids total. So, and I mean kids like from 12 to like 17. And the ones that are like 18, 19, they were just reestablishing, acknowledging life skills. So they don't even matter, which is the extra 5 or 3 or whatever. So generally speaking, there's about 15 people per dorm, and there's only like two main dorms, and then the 5 with the bonus people. So I'm the youngest one, one of the more troubled ones. Super adorable. I know my cats are playing. So I'm getting kind of into this. Now, why is that my favorite? Because when the PE teacher brought that information onto the students, my first response was, the minimal standard is the standard, and there's like 10 to 30 different activities you gotta do. And now we're all, we're kids, and I'm like, we're getting this. The goal is to see how we gotta meet the minimals. The standard is the standard. We all gotta get this. Everybody in this class has to get it. So what does that mean? If everybody gets it, and then we gotta move to the next level, then we're all powering up there, because it's the friendly routine. We're all loving this competition together. You don't want to disappoint each other, especially yourself. So with that, we're all staring at each other, talking stuff or commenting or whatever, trying to power each other up. And needless to say, the presidential thing hops up, and some of the timed ones, like we set the records a long time ago on those. So what happens when you have like 10 kids that have in the class, in the entire 10, 15 kids in the entire class who all manage to excel on the middle, and then the standard, and then the presidential thing. Well, the cool thing is you set records. I think we set like 6, 7 records, 10 records or something like that. Like we flooded the damn thing. I mean, why not? You're never gonna get this opportunity ever. So we're like, dude, let's get this shit going, all right? So that's kind of where my ambition comes in. And since we're in Virginia, which is right down the street from DC, when Bill Clinton got note of of the awesome sauce. He's like, so what? 15 kids in a school, no big deal. He goes, yeah, but there's only 30 there, 35 there. So a third or half, these numbers are old, so I'm just making good guess. But I do know that the president literally stopped on campus at like 4 o'clock in the morning or some late time. Just made a personal stop at our place because the staff members were all excited the next day. So that's why I love this country. All right, and I find it embarrassing to work for government because you guys got financial problems left and right, and it's always fraud. It's always extortion. It's always something. You guys have been talking about every time you get on the news, on the TV. And I haven't had a TV for like 10 years. So whenever I hear you guys on the news or when I'm walking by, you guys are always just causing problems and taxing and stuff. All right, well, it's been 30 minutes. I got to go. Thank you for your time. Like, click, sign up, whatever. I don't know. I don't care. Enjoy it. Party on Rockstar.